Namaste and greetings. I am Priyanka Negi, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav Evam Niti Anusandhan Sansthan, Nai Delhi. Extend my warmest welcome to you all to IMPRI Web Policy Learning. Today marks the 8th day of DFPGYF, Diplomacy, Foreign Policy and Geopolitics Youth Fellowship, an online international winter and spring school program, a 3-month immersive online introductory leadership certificate training fellowship program. This training fellowship program is organized by IMPRI, Center for International Relations and Strategic Studies. The program today, the co-chairs are Professor Sanjukta Bhattacharya ji, retired Professor of International Relations, Jadavpur University, Kolkata, and visiting professor at IMPRI, and Dr. Simi Mehta, CEO and Editorial Director at IMPRI. The panel of conveners comprises of Dr. Simi Mehta and Dr. Arjun Kumar. Today, we are gathered here for the final day of presentation of the project ideas by our fellows, and we are excited to hear their perspectives. I welcome all of us to this enlightening deliberation. The course outline and reading resources have been shared in your email for your kind perusal. Without any further ado, we'll start the program, and I invite Professor Sanjukta Bhattacharya ji and Dr. Simi Mehta ji to kindly share some opening remarks for today's session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Priyanka. Good to be back again over here, and it will be good listening to the rest of the presentations, which most we heard, in fact, in the last session, that is on last Thursday. And today we are going into the final few, which are left over. I think you've already been told, please keep to the time. We are starting more or less right on time. It's 6 o'clock, 6:02, and we're supposed to finish by 8 o'clock. Now, I think you'll be given about 5 minutes each. So please try and keep to the time so that we can finish. In fact, I'm not going to take up much time here with opening remarks. I will, after you all finish, make some concluding remarks rather than basically this. So, Simi, if you want to say anything in the beginning, we can start.
Except for that, it was very interesting last week. So I really look forward to listening to the remaining participants' presentations.
Right, thank you. Then we can start, Priyanka.
We can start now, ma'am. Simi, ma'am, can you please give me the co-host access
Yes,
so I can give? Yes, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Then we can start, Priyanka.
We can start.
Yeah, please check Priyanka.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I have. So our first participant for today is Miss Pooja Nandini. Just let me give you the access. Yes, to everybody, just a short announcement. Please accept the promote as panelist link that we're sharing. Request that we're sharing with you all. So you can then access the share button on Zoom and also the video and audio feature. Pooja ji, in the meanwhile, you can start if you're ready with the presentation.
Good evening, ma'am. Just give me 1 second to share my PPT. Since I was not able to send it to you earlier, I'm just sharing it. Okay, meanwhile, while it's opening, I'll just give you a small introduction, a very quick introduction. My topic of research is India as a bridge or a mediator between the global north and the global south. Since a lot of thought has already been put into analysis of like bilateral relations between India and various countries, I thought I'll go for something which has not been looked into. So I have a small poem that I can just perform before I move to the PPT. My poem is titled The Bridge Named India. I am an ancient bridge from the legends of yore. The sands of time shift, but my feet remain planted on the shore. I look to my north. It is wealthy, watching, wary, but watching still. I look to my south. restless, rising, running through the mill. I do not bow to the storm or the sun. I do not bow to the east or the west. I outstretch my arms to both worlds. A messenger, a mediator, peace is my quest. Who do you stand with? Who do you stand with? They ask me from time to time, they ask me. I stand with the unheard, the chained, with the flying, with the free. When I walk into conference halls with words like equity, justice, and peace, they reply with words like currency, carbon, crisis. My heart stops and my thoughts cease. The North sees me as a market and a pawn. The South, it sees me as a beacon and a guide. And though I herald a new dawn, they both try to take me for a ride. Yet I rise. Yet I rise, carving my own path without fear. Yet I rise and shine both far and near. I am a bridge, unbowed, unbroken, and my story is just beginning to be spoken. Thank you. I'll quickly try and go to the PPT, which highlights. Ma'am, I'm not able to share it. Can someone else start and can I come back to the PPT? Or I'll just try one more time to share.
Pooja ji, are you not able to share your presentation?
Yeah, I've tried the share button, but like my screen is not getting shared. But I'm still trying. So meanwhile, if someone can start, I can just pop in between and run through the
Sure.
PPT.
Vipra ji, can you go next?
Hi, yeah, just a second. I'll just share my presentation. Uh, is it visible?
Yes.
Okay. In the meantime, ma'am, I'm sorry. I know you were excited about the Arctic topic for the paper, but I ended up changing it a little bit. So, my topic for my research now is the Baltic Sea in the new geopolitical order. The region is changing, and it's high time we move our attention there as the next region, as it's the potentially the next region of conflict. Um, so in my research, I'm focusing on how it is emerging as the center of NATO-Russia rivalry. I begin with exploring the what the dynamics of the region are. So I have marked these geopolitical markers which sort of heighten the tensions within the region. So first of all, the Baltic Sea is bordered by states. Apart from Russia, all of them are a part of EU and the NATO. Um, and NATO memberships like Finland and Sweden, these are new members which have recently, contributed in heightening of the tensions. Then we have the St. Petersburg port right over here, and it is inside from the Gulf of Finland, which sort of acts like a choke point between Finland and Estonia. Both of them are members of NATO and EU again. Um, then we have Kaliningrad, which is again Russian territory, but the only way to access it is through the sea and via land. That will be via Belarus and the Suwalki Gap. Now, the Suwalki Gap is also sandwiched between Poland and Lithuania, both of them again part of NATO, part of EU. Then we have just a second. Then we have the Danish states over here. This is the only exit point from the Baltic Sea, which is also again controlled by a NATO member. Okay, after that we come to these islands. Now the Åland islands, these are neutral. By law, they cannot be used for military purposes. However, we have the Åland Islands, which are not yet militarized, but can be militarized if they feel that the need is there. Gotland Islands were demilitarized in 2015, which was as a result of the Crimean the invasion of Crimea. The geopolitical location of these islands is also right across from Kaliningrad, which is a point of insecurity for Russia, which is also why Russia has amassed a lot of military equipment in this region just to protect that territory. And then lastly, we have the Bornholm Island, which is a part of Denmark. This island has the facility to monitor and control the entirety of Baltic Sea. And the access to that is again Denmark as well as NATO. Okay, then I move on to how this threat is currently being materialized. Just a second. Yeah, so there are military drills that have come up in the past few years. Then there is increased surveillance. There is politicization of events such as the Nord Stream 1 and 2 being sabotaged, and there are sabotages in general, such as the Baltic Connector pipeline and the undersea communication cables in the nearer past. Further, I expand into how these two events, that is the Ukraine-Russia war and the change of regime in Syria, are resulting in a concentration of threat of conflict in the Baltic Sea. I consider these three, that is like one is this, the second is here, and the third is here. These three as frontiers through which Russia could have potentially accessed Europe with so-called evil intentions. The proceedings of these two events have effectively cut the Russian threat off from the Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea, which means now the focus is entirely on the Baltic Sea. And again, the increase can be seen in the form of increased military drills, the increased surveillance, etc. Now, throughout this, I am also stressing upon how it is somewhat a larger scheme to contain Russia in light of the Chinese threat. Here, I would like to talk about how the US withdrawal from Afghanistan was also a potential starting point of this entire scheme, because that freed up a lot of resources and manpower that can now be concentrated towards the European front, and has thus led to the fall of regime in Syria and the resources or the funding that have gone into Ukraine. Yeah, so and with that, I would like to conclude while I bring in the China-Russia angle and how containing Russia helps the West counter the Russia-China duo in the long run. Yeah, that's about it.
Thank you, Vipraji.
Thank you, Vipra. Just wanted to ask you, what exactly are you trying to prove? What is your what is the objective of your paper?
My main objective is to sort of draw a picture of how Baltic Sea would be like, sort of like the next center of the NATO-Russia rivalry. Because like you
Okay,
can
now,
see in through events and how the efforts and all have been going in to the rivalry in general, how everything is being concentrated towards the Baltic Sea now.
okay, so that is your hypothesis.
Yeah.
Now in a research paper, you need to in fact spell out the hypothesis and then go about and prove it. So that because here you have just given, the Baltic Sea and well, what is important in it, not why is it important, all right? So the why is very important. The analysis bit is very important. Okay. So first you have to give your research objective, or rather your hypothesis, your research question, then all this, and then basically go about and prove, well, why you think that it's going to be the next point of conflict. Okay, so that would make it a perfectly good paper. In fact, it's a good idea. It is, of course, something that we're all thinking about. But what you've said just now is just a kind of, is a description of the Baltic Sea and, the points, not even the flashpoints. All right. So basically, I mean, what is important about it? So, well, what are the flashpoints? Okay. Why do you think it's going to be the next, area of contest, okay, in Europe? So, after giving basically your research question. And so that will make it a great paper. Go ahead. I think it's good. It's a good idea. Okay,
Thank you
great.
so much, ma'am.
Next up, Pooja Nandini ji, we'll go ahead with you. I'll just put up your presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. While you are doing that, just a disclaimer. The events that have taken place in the past week, because my research was based on a long period where India was marked by a long period of peace. I'm hoping none of that changes what I'm about to research. So, India is a bridge between the global north and global south. Next slide, please. This is keeping in mind the recent influence India has had, where we are able to talk in the language of the developing as well as the developed countries. So I think we are in a unique position that not many countries can be in. So the new alignments and keeping in mind how even the West prefers democracies like us compared to China, India has a unique role and a new responsibility, I feel, to act as a mediator to continue championing global South causes, even in Western-led institutions. So recent successes like, next slide, please. Recent successes like the COP we hosted, our multilateral engagements, these all point out that there is a lacuna within the multilateral diplomacy going on, and India can act as a mediator between the two apparently divided areas. Next slide, please. So the main questions of my research would be, what is India already doing to maintain this equilibrium? How has India shaped institutional processes recently? Like I can give the example of International Solar Alliance. What constraints it faces for its role? And how does the strategy compare with other emerging powers? Thank you. Next slide, please. So my methodology would primarily involve case studies, official documents. For example, for trade, I'll be picking up WTO documents. For climate diplomacy, it could be the recent UNFCCC reports. So all the official data. Next slide, please. Next slide. So this is quite a new theory I wanted to look into, and I would like to know if I mean, I can go ahead with it or not, since this is my first time that I'm getting an opinion on this. I was not able to share the abstract last time. Recent examples of India's economic mediation include G20, even political mediations like involvement of pushing for Africa in G20, for example. Next, please. So yeah, we are making progress with organizations like Quad. But right now, the idea is, because we are in a unique position, I think India's Prime Minister is the only one who could meet within a week Israel, Palestine, as well as Russia, Ukraine. So this kind of legitimizes our position, this role that I talk about. Next slide, please. Yeah, climate diplomacy. So ISA, as I talked about, and all the other initiatives where we have been pushing strongly. Next slide, please. Okay, so the preliminary findings would be that despite our leadership, we are facing constraints. Sorry for the errors, network problems. Yeah, can we go to the next slide? Okay. Yes. So it is something I could not find a lot of articles really talking exactly about this role, but I hope to research it in whatever way I can. And keeping in mind recent events globally, I think I have a window of a new topic here, a good research here. I'd like to know your opinions. Thank you.
Thank you, Pooja. It's interesting, but what you must remember, what is your background? IR?
No, ma'am. I am a civil engineer, and as of I am not a practicing engineer. I teach French and Spanish. So with French, it's also like I work in something which is called an immersion program where we teach culture as well. I've worked with Alliance Française in the past, so that is what I'm doing right now. But I'm hoping to transition into IR eventually.
Okay, good. I mean, if you know Spanish and French, I mean, that's very good opening. But the reason I was asking is because there is a difference between multilateralism and mediation, right? So now we are basically following, as you said, multi-alignment possible. I mean, it's not just we don't align with anybody. It's not even multi-alignment. We are following a multi-partnership kind of a program, and I personally don't believe that non-alignment has really ended, but it has changed its character completely. Okay, because are we aligned with anybody? Do we have any allies? Allies would mean, military or whatever. No, we don't. Okay. So basically, we try not to get allied, but we follow a kind of multilateral diplomacy, all right, which of course involves all, and that is what we've been doing. Even during Nehruvian time, okay, we did take assistance from both the East and the West, all right. I mean, wherever we got it from, where in fact it came without basically any alignment involved, all right. So basically, it is a continuation of the same policy in the 21st century sense, okay, to an extent. If you really look at it deeply, all right. Now, as a mediator, the one time that we did try to play mediating role was actually the Korea conflict, all right. Now, so mediation is not the same as multilateralism. Now, in the current context, of course, there are uh, uh, areas where you can look at India as a mediator in uh, global diplomacy between the North and the South, all right, and that, of course, is climate. So basically, I would suggest that you keep your paper uh, basically limited to climate change and the COP, the COP, all right, as such meetings, okay, where India does try to, all right, mediate, okay. Uh, the G20, what has it mediated? All right. The G20 in its Delhi meeting, they brought about this thing, you see, but they didn't mediate. All right. They brought about a kind of consensus, statement. But did that mean that the Ukraine war stopped? No. All right. So, where has it mediated otherwise? All right. But when it comes to climate change, India basically does try to mediate, and along with China and other countries of the global south, it tries to basically use its diplomatic skills, all right, to counter what the north is saying and try to find a medium position. So basically, this is one area where you can look at, all right. As you said, you have some research questions also added to your this thing. Please add those, all right. What are your research questions? And the reason that you have not found many articles is because it's very ambitious to say that India as a mediator between the global north and the global south. I
Can I
don't think that's
change it to like the word mediator to more like a common point? Because let's say India has been also working not like China with the BRI concept, but more like inclusion of Africa. It's outreach to Africa in recent times. It's outreach to the islands in Indo-Pacific in recent times. So more like someone who's trying to bridge this gap between the North and South. Because while we are no longer, we cannot claim to be as developed as China is, so we are not in that league officially, but we are still reaching out to the Indo-Pacific neighborhood. We are still reaching out to Africa. So maybe in terms of just climate diplomacy and maybe trade.
that is the foreign policy of India. I mean, reaching out the outreach that we have, and that is a part of countering China. It's not the global north. So when you talk, I mean, as I said in the last thing also, that you have to be very careful about the terminology, what terms you use. All right, a mediator is a country or a group of people who try to mediate an end to a conflict. For instance, okay, at one point of time, the Sri Lanka conflict. I mean, there was a group from Norway, all right, which was trying to mediate an end to the conflict. Now, have we ever done that? All right, gone into a conflict zone or basically tried to resolve a conflict. As I said, the only time we tried to do that was in the UN, in the the Korean conflict, and we were in the 1950s, and there, of course, it wasn't much of a help in any case. All right, so after that, when it comes to mediation, well, if there are issues, what are the issues which are there? You can take that up. I mean, think about it. All right, so India as a mediator. All right, outreach is very different again from basically that's because that's our foreign policy. All right, we are reaching out to Africa, we're reaching out to to countries which are interested in the Indo-Pacific. All right, we have to go out and all that. But is that mediation? No, that's countering. All right, as such, that is partnership. All right, getting together. So
I mean,
mediation is when you try to come to a
yeah, if I
yeah.
focus on the climate diplomacy, for example, the progress we've made in like world uh, forums, what
Yeah.
exactly can I narrow it down to for this to be a like
What are
viable?
the main issues between the global north and the global south? Okay, so take on the main issues, all right, as such, and what are the consensus points, all right, which India and China and other countries of the global south, especially India, has been able to kind of, you see, negotiate with the North. All right. And of course, after Donald Trump cuts in, he gets rid of it all. I mean, he pulls out of the talks and things like that. So, there again, the negotiation goes, down the hill. But anyway, so it has tried to mediate, to negotiate between the North and the South only in the COP talks. All right. Also in the trade forums. I mean, that's the other that you will take up, in the WTO. It's acted as a mediator. All right. India's role as a mediator between the North and the South in the WTO. You could think about climate change, you could think about the trade negotiations too. Okay. And going back to Uruguay round, all right, as such, you could go back to GATT and then you can follow it up, all right, to the WTO. All right. So there are two areas where you can talk about India as a mediator between the global North and the global South, if that's exactly what you want to work on. All right.
Yes.
But you have to be careful that you don't mix up multilateralism, you don't mix up India's foreign policy aims, objectives with basically negotiation or mediation. Okay.
Yes. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
Richa, thank you.
Thank you, Pooja ji. Next up, Simran ji, please go ahead with the presentation.
I'll just share the screen in a minute. Give me a minute. Okay. Mm, Can you share the screen from your side? I think there is some issue. I'm unable to share the screen.
Yeah, let me just try your presentation.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Um, can I start?
Yes.
So, very good evening to esteemed professor and my dear colleagues. My name is Simran Gungalia, and I'm a second year MA student pursuing Masters in International Relations from Gujarat University. So, my research topic is BRICS, that is an alternative of Western Bloc. So the reason of choosing this topic is that, as we all are seeing these days in news, how the Western Bloc, specifically Trump, is taking decisions and affecting the rest of the world. So I feel that it is very important that a organization like BRICS emerges to not alternate, to not alter, but to to alter and counter uh, Western Bloc rather than rather than replacing it. So next slide. First, let's understand BRICS. So BRICS is an informal grouping of Brazil, comprising Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and few other nations have recently joined BRICS. It almost has 25%, that is the quarter GDP of world's GDP, and 40% of the world's population. So it is very beneficial for emerging countries because most of the countries are emerging countries, and also the term was emerged in 2001 by Goldman Sachs, Jim O'Neill, the head of Goldman Sachs. So he came up with the idea of BRICS, and the first BRICS meeting was held in 2006 in Russia. Next slide. Let's understand the difference between BRICS and the Western Bloc. Talking about ideology, BRICS promote multipolarity, sovereignty, but it also has its own disadvantages. And when we talk about Western Bloc, they staunchly promote liberal democracy. They believe in interventionism. The way USA has been doing the intervention in Afghanistan, Vietnam, history says it all. When we talk about economy, BRICS are the emerging economies. They are still emerging, and they are in the phase of developing rather than developed, whereas Western Bloc is a developed economies. They already have been through the phase of industrialization, and they already have been settled. When we talk about institutions, so we have NDB and CRA, and here Western Bloc is influenced. Western Bloc is ruled by BRICS institutions like IMF, World Bank, and WTO. There is a catch here that NDB and CRA are emerging institutions, but the problem with these institutions are that they are not as powerful as Bretton Woods system, and they do not have enough funding to actually go on with the projects. CRA is a contingency reserve arrangement that comes in to help and balance the liquidity reserves, or when there is a shortage in liquidity, and NDB provides the private and public infrastructures. But the problem again here is that they do not have any conditions the way IMF, World Bank has, but they do not have so strong or enough funding to actually what say to replace it, but they're trying to counter it to some extent. Talking about power structures, so power structure is consensus based. Here, all the countries are emerging, so consensus is important here. But when we talk about the Western Bloc, we know that USA is dominating. Western Bloc, we can talk about EU, NATO, and USA itself. So they all are dominated by USA. Next slide. Next slide. The recent okay, BRICS is an alternative. So BRICS is increasingly envisioned as a systematic alternative rather than merely a supplementary institution. When we talk about economic growth, talking about countries like China and India, they are one of the fastest growing major economies. BRICS has become an economic powerhouse in global supply chains and technological innovation. De-dollarization and financial autonomy. I feel that this is a very difficult to put in the system, but this has become a very important aspect to look upon. The way Trump is announcing tariffs and affecting the global economy. So de-dollarization initiative reflects the desire for monetary independence and protection from external economic coercion. Then BRICS as an alternative also talks about multipolarity. The bloc promotes a decentralized global power structure where influence is distributed across various regions rather than concentrated in the West. Then we talk about global South solidarity. So BRICS provides a diplomatic and financial platform for countries marginalized in global discourse, reinforcing solidarity among emerging economies and challenging the neocolonial structures of global financing and diplomacy. Next. Uh, as BRICS is an emerging organization or a grouping, they also have limitations. Despite its aspirations, BRIC faces significant internal and structural limitations. First is that the bloc comprises of diverse political systems like liberal democracy. When we talk about India, Brazil, South Africa, they all are liberal democracy. But when we talk about China and Russia, they believe in authoritarianism. Then there is an absence of strategic integration. Unlike Western alliance, BRICS lacks a formal foreign doctrine or security alliance. They do not even have a even have their own office or a building, office where they can actually discuss, or an institution where they can actually talk about the issues. Then another issue is China's dominance. So China's economy preeminence and geopolitical assertiveness shows that China's dominance might affect the other emerging countries. Then bilateral tensions. BRICS also have ongoing internal bilateral tensions like India-China border disputes. Then Brazil is very inconsistent with the participation and institutional weakness. So when we compare to IMF, World Bank, and or a institution or a group like NATO, BRICS institutional capacity remains under resources and remains comparatively weak. Next slide. To realize its full potential, BRICS must adopt a coherent, long-term strategic vision. First is that they should focus on institutionalization. Establishing a permanent BRICS secretariat would enhance coordination, institutional memory, and policy continuity. Then there should be an internal cohesion. Diplomatic mechanisms are needed to mediate internal conflict and facilitate consensus across diverse political and economic contexts. Strengthen NDB and financial instruments. So NDB should expand lending in local currencies, attract new members, and create innovative financial products tailored for a global south. Then promotion of a local trade currency that I already have discussed in the financial instrument. Then BRICS Plus as a strategic expansion. Membership's expansion should be value aligned and not merely based on numbers, focused on countries that reinforce BRICS core objectives. Then last but not the least, the cultural and the academic diplomacy. So establishment of think tanks, academic exchange platforms, independent media can help shape a shared narrative distinct from Western bloc. Next. The last slide. Uh,
Please wrap up in a
yes.
minute.
In conclusion, I would just like to say that BRICS does not seek to replace the Western-led world order, but to reconfigure it. Its vision is one of the coexistence and pluralism rooted in sovereignty, inclusivity, and equity. While the road ahead is complex and filled with contradictions, BRICS holds the potential to serve as a constructive disruptor, reshaping the norms of global governance to better reflect the aspirations of multipolar post-Western world. Thank you.
Thank you, Simran. Uh, Good, but may I just make a couple of suggestions? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Because you are comparing an organization, all right, which is a multilateral organization, with the so-called Western Bloc. Now, Western Bloc, what do you mean by the Western Bloc? Okay. Uh, that is not defined. I mean, there is the NATO in the West, there is also EU, there are other organizations there. So basically, I mean, you cannot uh, compare one organization with uh, something which is rather vague, all right? I mean, and when it comes to Western Bloc, all right, as such, I mean, there is no such thing as the Western Bloc right now, all right? That was there during the Cold War period. But can you really talk about the Western Bloc and the Eastern Bloc? Okay. It's the global North and the global South we talk about rather than the Western Bloc. And so you talk about Bretton Woods institutions and all that. Why don't you just focus on the BRICS? All right. Focus on the BRICS since you're working on the BRICS and basically analyze its capacity, all right, for becoming a more positive Because so far, all right, I mean, you pointed out the challenges that it faces, and uh, what has it achieved so far, except adding more, or at Middle Eastern countries to the BRICS, all right?
Okay.
But as what they want basically is to have a currency that will challenge the dollar, all right? A currency that will be more acceptable than the dollar. Have they achieved that? No. Okay. Not yet. Okay. But can they do it? Okay. So far as multilateralism is concerned, BRICS has, all right, well, uh, well, they have, it's rather IPSA rather than BRICS, but what are the security arrangements that basically uh, it's kind of pushing forward? So why don't you do an analysis of BRICS, all right, and its potential as a major organization, multilateral organization in the future? Something like that, rather than talking about the Western Bloc comparing, all right? Because, uh, well, as I said, this is rather vague. I mean, whereas BRICS is not vague, BRICS is an organization. So compare something which is concrete with something which is concrete, not with
Okay.
something which is not concrete. Okay, so BRICS, and just focus on BRICS itself. There's so much of work to be done. There's so much of work which has been done. Find out the gaps and do that. All right.
Okay.
Okay. Right.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Simran. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Smiti Iyer, please go ahead.
Ma'am, am I audible and is this visible?
Yes, you're audible and it's visible. Please go to the presentation mode.
Yes. All right. So, good evening to the esteemed professors and my fellow colleagues. So, my name is Smiti Iyer, and today I'll be presenting on the topic navigating the local from the global lens, promoting diversity through India's gastro diplomacy. So, before I present, let me briefly explain what gastro diplomacy is. So, basically, it is another alternative word of the culinary diplomacy. That's what I'm going to emphasize on my research essay. So before I move on to the main topic, I'll also first give a brief overview about the soft power, because gastrodiplomacy is an aspect of the soft power. First, I'll also emphasize on the soft power definition by Joseph Nye, who considers soft power as an alternative method of the hard power, which is the manipulation and influencing the other countries through soft means, like without any weapons and all that. And then I also talk about the relevance of the soft power, why soft power is important in today's time. Then how does then the various ways in which soft power, like of which India is projecting its soft power, and then success stories, how successful it has been so far globally by incorporating various aspects like literature, art forms, fine arts, and performing arts. Then I'll come to the emphasis of gastrodiplomacy, how it's been an effective medium for India's soft power projection. So this is what I'm going to include in the introduction. Then comes the theoretical framework. So I'll first include constructivism. Why constructivism? Because it focuses, or it also considers, or it explains why India wanted to achieve its national interests, or why India wanted to be superior around all over the world through gastro diplomacy. So this is the reason it gives. Now it comes the contact theory. So through gastro diplomacy, India will able to bring effective and strong relations with other countries in the world. Then comes the nation branding. So gastro diplomacy is also one of the key areas or key aspects for India to brand itself. And as I emphasized earlier, that it is also one of the main aspect or main factors for the cultural diplomacy as well, for when it comes to providing Indian food to other countries. There comes the methodology. So in my research essay, I'll be incorporating qualitative method entirely, and it is mainly focused on the secondary research as well. So as you can see, there are journal publications like JSTOR, Sage Journal, Taylor and Francis. So all the points and arguments that I'll pointed out, it will be referred to these journals along with the online articles like the Economic Times, CGI Hamburg, and the Center for Soft Power. And when it comes to substantiating my arguments, so to make it easier, I'll be using images, then for Canva, I'll be incorporating flowcharts to make any event easier and efficient. Then use of artificial intelligence will only be used for the image generation as well as refinement of a particular aspect or topic. But I wanted to point this ethical consideration that like I won't be dependent on AI at all in my work. Now, when it comes to the main findings, so I'll begin with the historical emphasis of what I would like to convey on my topic. So I'll be giving so my first topic will be based on gastro diplomacy as a tool for diplomatic dining. So as you can see that India, when the region conducts various diplomatic conferences or diplomatic negotiations, whether it's bilateral or multilateral, so after the meeting, after the conference happens, so there is a dining that takes place. So if you can see in the first image, there it's the image of the G20 conference, the dining that happened after the G20 conference, where it included the millet-based dishes prepared for the G20 delegates across. And in the second side, as you can see, it's a diplomatic dining or after the bilateral meeting between the India and the US among Prime Minister Manmohan Singh as well as the President Obama. Then second, I would like to emphasize on the food festivals, like how gastro diplomacy is effective through food festivals. So here are the examples that I would like to point out is the Indian Vegetarian Food Festival in Berlin as well as the Indian Food Festival at Djibouti, but I'll also incorporated few more examples as well. These are just for the highlight that I'll be incorporating similar examples in my essay. Next, now my last finding would be based on the gastro diplomacy through Indian restaurant. So the establishment of Indian restaurant across the world also plays key emphasis on how Indian food is actually very popular across the countries or across the countries all over the world. So first, as you can see in these two pictures, my first picture talks about Bombay Beach at the USA. It's the name of a restaurant at US. Then there's this Ganesh Ek Sanskriti is also another Indian restaurant at Indonesia. So I'll talk about these two as well, along with providing an historical emphasis of India and their country's relation when it comes to gastro diplomacy at the beginning. So the conclusion, I'll first talk about the summary of the key findings that I have collated so far. Then I'll also talk about how gastro diplomacy today is very, very relevant in international relations. And then I'll also put forward the possible recommendations and solutions to enhance the gastro diplomacy in future, as well as how it can be enhanced even today. So thank you. That's my end of the presentation.
Thank you very much, Smriti. This was interesting, quite interesting. Gastro diplomacy is something that has been used by the United States, particularly with their fast food, which you find all over the world, and Chinese also. Basically, they have been, well, Chinese food is known all over the world, though it, of course, acquires the taste of the local versus the global, which, of course, is there in. One second, I have a little cat here who's trying to get on my laptop. Okay. Okay, so this is something that you can really carry on. Now, I was just wondering, since you're giving a historical background, Indian food for a long time has impacted various parts of the world where Indians have expanded, right? In Africa and in Southeast Asia. Okay, maybe you can put in a bit of this thing. You see, you can explore that a little bit and make it even more interesting. You know, things like roti and all that is still it, it's there in Africa, and of course rice eating, and even some of the curries, etc., which are there in Southeast Asia, have this Indian state, this use especially South Indian coconut, all right, in Southeast Asia. That is very much there. So maybe when you're doing the historical research, add that it's not new. It's something which has been there. I mean, food impacts where you go, all right. The very fact that we have an impact of Western, we have a liking maybe for Western food is because of the English influence over here. You find when they left, the chicken curries and stuff like that. I'm sure we didn't have chicken curries before the British came. Okay, so the way they kind of changed things around, I mean, making chicken into a curry, or vindaloo or something like that. So that is very much there. It's cross-cultural, all right. And the part where you talk about promoting it further, it's primarily also you can have, like MasterChef classes or something like that. You can, promote Indian cuisine through, having classes on Indian food, all right, abroad. I mean, and maybe our diplomatic missions can do that, all right, something like that. Okay, I mean, push it forward. It's interesting. Go ahead and do it. I think it's quite interesting that way.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Right. Mm.
Thank you, Smriti ji. Divyanshi, please go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Myself Divyanshi, and today I'm presenting a photo video poetic form. So I'm going to share right now.
Divyanshi, you'll have to be a little louder. Get a little closer to the mic, okay?
Okay. Wait for a second. Is it visible?
It's visible, but your audio is very feeble.
Respected IMPRI members, dear friends of peace and progress, I am Divyanshi. I warmly welcome you to a journey where the fields of India whisper tales of diplomacy. Today, through a poetic photo essay, let's explore how India's sustainable agriculture blooms as a gentle force of soft power uniting nations in a shared vision of harmony. Let's begin with the first light of fields of influence. In fields where dawn and dreams converge, a world unites. Its hope resurge. Through soil and seed, we softly sway. India leads in a diplomatic way. Esteemed audience, India's fields blooms with diplomacy. Picture a golden sunrise over Bihar's wheat field, where farmers of India's the heart and soul tend the soil that feeds us and fuels our economy. These fields aren't just about crops, they are stages of diplomacy. With 85% of our farmers owning small plots, India's sustainable practices like organic farming and water saving techniques shine as a model for the world. My research shows how these efforts bloom into soft power, inviting nations to join hands for a greener, more peaceful future. It is not just farming. India says, let's grow trust together. Let us now turn to slide 2, Rajasthan cultivating trust. In the desert's heart, where trust takes flight, olive whispers peace by starlight. With allies joined, the earth's embrace, India carves a hopeful space. Now imagine Rajasthan sandy dunes where a farmer cradles an olive sapling, a gift from partnership with Israel. This isn't just about growing a new crop in harsh land, it is diplomacy at work. Rajasthan was among the first states in the country to adopt drip irrigation technology. By sharing innovation, India and Israel are planting trust, crafting a story of peace where olives, symbols of harmony, bloom. This farmer's pride reflects India's soft power, showing the world that we can turn deserts into dreams. It is a quiet kind of leadership that says, let's build something hopeful side by side. Let us now turn to slide 3, Nepal and Bhutan regional harmony. In mountains high, where friendships bloom, seeds of peace dispel the gloom. India's hand, a neighbor's guide, harmony flows side by side. Let's climb to the Himalayas where India reaches out to Nepal and Bhutan, sharing knowledge how to enrich these harvest. Picture like a small Nepali farmer learning new ways to protect her soil, her smile mirrored by a Bhutanese neighbor. This is regional diplomacy. India's as a big sister guiding them, like helping each other carefully. These ties weave harmony across borders, proving that sustainable agriculture can bind South Asia in a shared dream of prosperity. It is not about power. It is about lifting each other, growing peace one field at a time. Now let us turn to slide 4, that is global vision, a world united. From distant shores to the verdant lands, a world intertwined by farmers' hands, India's call a gentle plea for peace through green diplomacy. Finally, let's zoom out to a montage of global field, from Brazil, vibrant markets to Africa's rolling plains. India's sustainable agriculture connects these far-off places, sparking partnerships that pulse with possibility. This is green diplomacy at its finest, where India's leadership invites everyone to join a quest for sustainability. It is a call to action. Let's sow seeds. Thank you. Over, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, Devanshi. Can you, I mean, very nice, the whole thing being put in poetry form. It's interesting. But just can you tell me again your title?
Yes, the title of my the research is the strategic deployment of sustainable agrarian initiatives, India's evolving soft power projection within the global geopolitical framework.
Okay. Well, that's a pretty large topic. I mean that way. But uh, when you're writing a research paper, this is very interesting. It was nice listening to you also, and with the pictures and all that. But when it comes to writing a research paper at the end of it, you do need to, well, maybe you can give the poem in a short form earlier, all right, that you've written. But basically, you have to go into a proper research paper format, all right, which is what are you trying to prove? Okay, what are the well, what is your hypothesis? Okay. Hypothesis appears to be that we are doing very well. We are kind of, it's a neighborhood first policy with Nepal and Bhutan, and also with Africa and green diplomacy. Okay. Uh, First of all, cut down your title, all right? Make
Yes,
it
sir.
green diplomacy and, well, with the subtitle, which basically has India's outreach, all right, or whatever it is. Within the country, you were talking about Rajasthan, and that is it, with collaboration with Israel, all right? The basically the drip zones, all right, where they have brought in. There are other collaborations also, and even earlier. Uh, but what are the indigenous things that we have that we are, all right? Because we have taken from others and uh, we have helped ourselves, all right? But what are the indigenous? Because we have developed certain these things. I'm not very adept at agriculture or anything like that, so I really don't know. But I do read in the newspapers about the kind of things that we are developing ourselves indigenously, and how are we basically using it ourselves, and how basically are we sending it outside, all right? Promoting it elsewhere. Like, uh, we sent farmers, etc., to Ethiopia, but there are problems. So basically, the challenges also have to be brought in. It's not just, win-win all the time. There is win some, lose some. Okay. So what has been the success? So make it into a more of a research format. Put in your poem. Don't miss that out. That is very nice. The whole thing. But also, we want a research paper out of this. So
Yes.
put it into a research format. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thank
Okay,
you.
Devashi. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Akshat Mehrotra, please go ahead next.
Yeah, let me share the screen. Is it visible?
Yes, it's visible. You can go presentation mode.
Yeah. So, good evening, everyone present over here. Myself, Akshat Malhotra. I am a second year history honors student pursuing from Delhi University. So, the topic of my research is India's balancing act navigating US-China rivalry. So, basically, my motive behind choosing this topic is the current scenario going on. Like as we all know, we have heard in news like the trade wars going on between US and China. So how India is dealing between them? So hello everyone. So as we let me introduce it first. So the agenda of my overview, like there will be the introduction and backgrounds. We will learn about India's strategic response and the challenges and opportunities faced by India and in conclusion. So let's learn about the background and introduction. The 21st century, in the 21st century, we have seen a sharp rise in geopolitical competition between United States and China, whether it's trade wars, tech rivalries, or territorial assertions. India sharing borders with China and strategic interests with USA has walked a tightrope. Traditionally guided by the principle of strategic economy, India avoids rigid alliances. India avoids rigid alliances, instead pursuing a flexible foreign policy. So in my research, we have explored how India balances its relationships, leveraging global power shifts while safeguarding its sovereignty and regional interests. So let's learn about the India strategic response. So India's strategic response sets on three pillars: diplomacy, defense, and economics. On the defense front, India has strengthened ties with US through agreements like BICA, while participating in Quad exercises to ensure a free and open movement in the Indo-Pacific. At the same time, India continues engaging with China through platforms like SCO, BRICS, showing that dialogue remains open despite border tensions. Economically, while trade with China is significant, over $100 billion, India is actively diversifying supply chains, boosting trade with US and Southeast Asia to reduce overdependence. So this is the image of the Chinese ambassador to India. In a recent meeting, I was the part of the Indian delegation where I had the insightful talks with the Chinese ambassador to India, which helped me a lot for me uh, to contribute in my research. So let's talk about the challenges and the opportunities faced by India. The balancing act is not without difficulties. As you all know, the Galwan Valley clash in 2020 reminds us the volatile nature of the India-China ties. Meanwhile, the scale of the Chinese imports, especially in electronics and pharmaceuticals, poses a challenge to India's economy independence. Yet India has used these challenges as stepping stones. It is the assertion leadership among global South nations and enhancing its influence in the Indo-Pacific. By investing in tech partnerships and leading multilateral dialogues, India is transforming its constraints into strategic opportunities. So this is the analysis the India strategic engagement with US and China. So as we all can see that there is a clear tilt to in the military cooperation within the US, and on the if we talk about the trade side, there is a tilt towards the China, as we have a lot of import and exports between India and China. In conclusion, I would like to say that India's response to US and China rivalry is not about just choosing sides, it's about persevering autonomy while maximizing advantage. In an age of shifting power centers, India is no longer a swing state, it is becoming a shaper of the global order. So let me end it with a beautiful poem. Not pawn nor prize in other schemes, India shapes its sovereign dreams. Through shifting tides and tempest calls, it walks the line but never falls. Thank you.
Thank you, Akshat. Uh, it's an interesting topic. Uh, it has been worked on also quite a bit. So, when you're writing a research paper, you also basically uh, you to find a research gap. What has been done so far? You're a history student, so you know, all right. So, what is original in yours? All right. Uh, so that the conclusion that you come. So, basically, by doing a review of literature, a very brief review here, of course, it has to be, find yourself a research gap, all right, on which you must focus, Okay, because India, in between US-China rivalry, or if you call it rivalry or relationship, all right, where does India figure? We uh, there has been a lot of work on Quad, and India does play a balancing act, all right. It's part of SU, as you said. It's also part of BRICS, okay. Quite apart from that, it has big trade imbalance with China. So we really cannot think in terms of, upsetting China. Uh, so all these are very much there, okay. Uh, but when push comes to the shove, all right, how is he going to act, all right? So basically, uh, India is playing its own game also with China in the sense that while they have their BRI, all right, we also are trying to, build communication lines, all right, true. And here, in fact, it's not just the US, we are balancing with the Middle East countries, all right, very much so, and with the help of the European countries also, trying to build our own corridors, all right, in the Indo-Pacific also, okay. If they are building their string of pearls, we too are trying to, set up our own this thing. So basically, it's not just a question of balancing between the US and China. It's itself is playing a forward game, as you said in your poem, which comes out there. That we are also. I mean, we are nobody's servant or anything like that. Or right? We are nobody's. This thing, we have our own plans. We have our own diplomacy, which we are also following. But if it means taking the assistance of the United States or uh, any other country, I mean, we are ready to. Our minds are open to partnerships. All right. So basically, that is there. So kind of rework. I mean, this is a good thing, but it has been much bandied about, all right, about US, China, and India as a balancing. So find out what is the research gap, what has not been worked on, and focus on that. Okay, right?
Thank you so much,
Thank
ma'am.
you. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, Mona Lisa Acharya, you can go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, the project is visible now.
It was visible earlier, now it's not visible.
Okay, ma'am. I'm trying again. Ma'am, now?
Now we can see, yeah, now we can see, just go on the slideshow mode.
Okay, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. I am Mona Lisa Acharya from KIT University, Kids School of Rural Management. My topic was about climate change and maritime security and with respect to India's growing concern. Let us come to the point, what is climate change? Climate change refers to the long-term changes in global temperatures and weather patterns. I want to quote a point that imagine a coastline slowly disappearing beneath rising waves, naval base threatened by cyclones, and fishermen abandoning their generations old livelihoods. And India has 7,500 kilometer coastline. It plays a very important role in the context of Indian Ocean. But climate change poses significant threats including rising sea levels, frequent cyclones, and coastal erosion. These environmental changes jeopardize the current scenario. Trade and energy routes are getting affected due to the climate change and coastal infrastructure also. Climate change as a security threat. Threats to naval base and ports and marine trade routes. Like the recent happening which was happened in the context of maritime, that the maritime piracy which was conducted by the African nation, that is affecting the supply chain part of our national security, and a humanitarian crisis due to climate induced displacement in the island country. For example, in the part of Andaman Nicobar Island and in the part of Lakshadweep, they are facing the climate change based hazardous effects. That's why people are migrating from their own original places, and it is impacting the fisher folk food system in the marine biodiversity, like the food web in the marine security. The coral reefs are getting affected, their color is changing and they are not getting the proper food. Strategic rivalries in Indian Ocean due to the opening of new sea route. Example, Arctic ice melt. This melting of Arctic ice create a new channel for the generation of new oceanic resources. For example, various type of minerals and petroleum and the gases, natural gases, which was very important for other nations and also for India. And India's strategic response, recent India's strategic response regarding to the current crisis. India has created certain alliances. For example, ICSS, Integrated Coastal Surveillance System, that was mainly focused upon a radar plus sensor to monitor India's coast, enhanced maritime security post 2611, covers mainland plus island territories, and Operation Sankalp. It was launched in 2019 to protect Indian ships in Gulf. Navy escorts plus monitor vessels, ensure safe trade routes. Sagar, security and growth for all India, all the region. Security and growth for all in the region. Focus regional peace, disaster response, and maritime ties. India as a net security provider in the context of a recent war which was happened between the Ukraine and Russia. India launched a certain mission to get back the Indian people into the Indian country. Certain mission was applied approached by India to get back the Indian, like Operation Shakti, Operation Namami Gange, and Operation Devi, etc. IONS, Indian Ocean Naval Symposium. Naval Forum started in 2008. 30 plus navies discussing regional cooperation, focused security, piracy, and a disaster aid. Coming to the conclusion part, climate change has become a significant maritime security challenge for India. It affects naval preparedness, coastal safety, and the integrity of the port infrastructure. India needs to adjust its maritime strategy to address these climate related threats. Collaboration within the region and the implementation of climate resilient policies are essential. Adopting sustainable practices which will safeguard our oceans and enhance our security. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mona Lisa. Uh, it's a good presentation. It's kind of, you see, okay on its own. We're looking at climate change and what India's response has been. But there's just one thing that I wanted to mention over here, and that is primarily, excuse me, you haven't given much analysis, all right? Uh, Sagar, IONS, all this, has it really, how successful are they? All right. You have just given instances of where it has worked, but
Yes, ma'am.
basically, how successful have they been? What more can we do? All right. We also have a
Yes,
neighborhood first policy. All right. There are other countries, all right, which are facing, like for instance, the Maldives, all right, and the Lakshadweep is ours, okay, Maldives. These areas are facing a greater challenge, all right, the island nations, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So, in its neighborhood first policy, is there anything to do with basically climate change and its neighbors? All right. Uh, because that also is important, all right? Have we done anything? Climate financing, etc., giving loans, okay? Have
Yes,
we
ma'am.
looked into that? So, uh, what is the strategy? What is India's climate strategy, first of all, okay, for itself, for its neighbors, all right? You've given what is climate change and things like that, but also go into the analysis part. So, how successful has the strategy been? If you look at that, it will be a better paper, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Please remember and just add that on. Okay. Thank
Yes, ma'am.
you.
Next, Tarangini Kumar, please go ahead with the presentation.
Sure, thanks, Priyanka. I hope my screen is visible. So, my topic
Yes.
is going to be great on geopolitics, focused on the Indo Pacific region, but we are also going to be looking at it through the media lens. The good news is that this is going to be short, like 2, 3 slides. So, research topic is framing the Indo Pacific, the media narratives and strategic perceptions existing in India, the US, China, and Japan. The research questions that this paper would be focusing on would include 5 pointers broadly: how the media narratives shape public opinion and influence masses, mapping recent geopolitical narratives and dialogues between the four countries India, US, Japan, and China. How are regional alliances like a Quad, AUKUS framed across different national media? How do media narratives align with or challenge the official foreign policy in these particular nations? How is soft power projected through state-backed or the mainstream media outlets? The sources would be mostly MEA and the mainstream media for all of these four countries. That's about it. Thank you.
That was a pretty short uh, Tarangini. Basically, I really didn't understand what you're looking at when you're looking at media narratives. Could you explain a bit more about that?
Sure. So mostly, predominantly, I'm wanting to focus on the Indo-Pacific region. Since I am not like, I don't have a background in geopolitics, I wanted to not kind of chew off more than, bite more than I can chew. So that is why I focused on India and the Indo-Pacific geopolitics. I'm trying to, so these 5 pointers under the research
Just
questions.
may I interrupt you a little bit? I mean, first of all, Quad is not an alliance.
Mhm.
Since you're not in Geopolitics, I mean, as I said, terminology is important. Uh, Quad is not an alliance, and AUKUS, India is not part of AUKUS, which is a bit of a alliance, all right? So basically, but India is not part of that. So how does that kind of figure into your, India's this thing in media narrative? So just focus on Quad, all right? Okay, and then please go ahead with your media narrative. Hmm.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, Tarangini, explain what you're saying about basically how you're going to go about this media narratives. Yeah.
Sure. So what I was thinking was to look at it to kind of do like a comparative study. So I've identified a few media, mainstream, mostly mainstream and national state-owned media outlets of the countries, of the governments of those countries. And so for say a certain event that I will kind of look at, we'll try to see how a media in India projects that particular news piece, and what is it that they are trying to, and why are they doing this predominantly? What is the narrative that through the media we are trying to influence the masses? That for all of these like four countries, I am trying to do four, but in case the time is limited, I might even, narrow it down a bit to maybe three or so.
Okay, but exactly what are you focusing on? I mean, the media is full of stories. Some of them are quite irrelevant. All right.
Mhm.
So, why don't you take one or two areas where uh, of your choice, where you think, in fact, the media has influenced or it has not influenced, which is important. Okay. The audience, but how are you going to measure the impact media's influence?
Can I get some suggestions on that? I really, uh, as of
No, it's
now,
very,
I don't really have an answer to that one. But
yeah, when it comes to what kind of media you're talking about, uh, Twitter, I think, has basically, sorry, X has something which can be quantified, but I'm not very sure. I have students who are working on this, but really this is not my area, the quantitative part of it. But so far as other social media are concerned, I'm not very sure how it can be quantified. And when it comes to basically the print media, I don't know, really. I mean, there's no way that you can quantify the impact it has on it unless you see basically something happening and then you find, well, uh, people taking to the roads, all right, because of that. So that would be media impact, all right. I mean, that happens when something like what has happened in Kashmir happens, all right, okay. But when it comes to the Indo-Pacific or the Quad, I really have no idea how you can measure the impact of the media. Okay, so rethink this a bit, all right, as to exactly maybe just uh, take X, all right, which can be quantified. I believe it can be. I mean, they bring out statistical data, all right. So basically, you can look into that and see what impact it has had, all right. How many people have looked at it? How many people, whether it's impacted them or not, you really can't make out. But how many people have looked at it? Yes, that can be all right. So even I think when you look at other things also, the number of people who are reading something that is there, all right. So maybe you could look at some, as you said, government data, or and look at the kind of, you see, look at the social media and see how many sightings it has had, viewings it has had, something like that. I mean, I wouldn't know how to do this, but I know that there are students of mine who are not here in India, in Germany and the US, they're working on something like this, all right? I mean, violence and all that. I mean, how that is spread through social media and they quantify it, all right? So,
so, right. So, ma'am, I think that like what happened during the US elections is what I know. So
hmm,
basically, like I think the metrics that a lot of companies, media companies refer to will
right,
be views as well
right,
as revenue. So revenue numbers aren't like freely available. However, I think views and maybe like matching it to what we saw during US elections, etc., can be a good way to look at it. I think I'll be able to manage the metrics there. So
yeah.
basically, we'll probably try to focus on a big event that probably happened, say, in a US or in a Japan or an India or a China, and then how it impacted the viewership of the media channels for that month vis-a-vis the other past months, maybe.
That would be a good idea, and that would also be a contribution. Yeah, go
Okay,
ahead with that. Okay, right.
sure. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And Hirsha, you can go next.
Yes, just a minute. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Uh, Good evening, Professor, and my fellows present here. I once envisioned a Indo-China bloc rising together to dominate the global stage, a bold, broad vision rooted in strategic imagination. But visions to be effective must meet reality. So I narrowed it down to a single tangible policy that holds the potential to bridge two great powers proposed by China in 2018, the 2+1 policy, which aims to create a framework where India and China, despite their differences, collaborate in third countries for mutual benefit. This presentation explores that policy not just as a diplomatic initiative, but as a doorway to recalibrating regional and global power equations. My next some of the slides include animated perspective of a dialogue between China and India of how this policy would be proposed by them. So China says, you have aligned with the West for decades. Where has that gotten you? And India responds, we have been doing this fine, thanks. Then China says that don't fight for a seat at the Western table. Let's together build a new table. India says, all right, I'm listening. What are you getting at? Then China says, here's a way, the 2+1 policy. Great. Another initiative. Sounds fishy. Why don't I get back to you on this? So let's understand this 2+1 policy and break it down. So this 2+1 policy is where India and China as a bloc would dominate the global landscape with a third country in collaboration. This policy was introduced by China in 2018, which suggests a collaborative development between India and China, particularly in the global south. So my paper exposed this policy as potential platform for strategic convergence, economic diplomacy, and regional stability, while critically analyzing its feasibility and underlying geopolitical motives. So let's break down this policy. The primary stakeholders are China and India, of course. And the assumption is that both the powers can set aside their bilateral tensions for shared strategic and development goals. The +1 in the policy targets the South Asian nations or other diplomatically aligned nations of both India and China, so that there is a counterbalance on excessive dependence on any one of the regional power, giving the third country more options and also acting as a mediator. The intent of this is to present a non-Western collaborative model of development based on regional proximity and a shared interest. For example, building joint road constructions, port developments, or energy grid support in third countries. The research questions for this policy, of course, are there because this is a more idealistic approach of China, since we have many diplomatic issues with them due to border tensions and whatnot. They are China's underlying motives, of course, which we have to understand. Then key parameters of this policy, of how this policy could benefit us economically and in terms of trade, infrastructure, and also strategically. Also, the main factor of this policy is the +1 part, which is which third country would be most suitable for this policy to work. The fourth question is how regional security dynamics, especially considering the border tensions, would play an impact, or how they would be solved, or any of that aspect. Also, how historically India and China relations have combined with the present day public diplomacy and domestic political perceptions influence the feasibility and trustworthiness of the 2+1 policy framework. The methodology which I want to pursue is a qualitative analysis, understanding the motive and strategic intent, which and the focus would be to unpack China's strategic motive behind proposing the 2+1 policy to India. The quantitative analysis would be assessing the economic, legal, and strategic dimensions, which would focus to evaluate measurable parameters and outcomes using trade data, FDI flow reports, and infrastructure partnerships records, etc., to assess how the 2+1 model would boost or hinder India's economic interest. I would also like to consider case study analysis to assess the practical viability of this. The pragmatism paradigm is something which is connected to my personal ideology and way of thinking, which is idealistic, but I am also a pragmatist by approach. So, proposing idealist principles, but also grounding them to a realist and pragmatist solution is what I want to achieve in this research paper. So, different sectors affected by this policy would be trade and economic relations, geopolitical and diplomatic relations, of course, security and defense, cultural and people-to-people ties, environmental and sustainability cooperation, technological innovation, regional and global influence. The policy suggestions which I have are to institutionalize the 2+1 framework. Of course, this is not already predetermined from my side, and I would welcome any suggestions. But this is what I have in mind right now, to institutionalize the 2+1 framework into a more pragmatic approach so that India can collaborate with China. Develop joint economic corridors, of course, coordinate on regional security, which is a very main factor, and also develop joint media productions or organize collaborative cultural festivals to promote public diplomacy in both the nations. Thank you.
Thank you here. That was a pretty dramatic presentation. But let me, it's nice. It catches your attention, definitely. But what is your background here?
Ma'am, I am a BCom student, first year.
In BCom, okay. All right. So first of all, I mean, when you're talking about Indo-China, Indo-China is an area. All right. You can write India-China, Sino-India, all right, but not really Indo-China. Indo-China, you know that basically it is what? Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, that's Indo-China, all right? So that
Okay.
area. So basically, you got the title wrong. Don't use the term Indo-China at all. Also, when you're going to the dialogue bit, all right, India was never aligned to the West, all right? It did take assistance, financial, economic, etc., from the West, but it also took assistance from the Eastern group, all right? So in building, so it was non-aligned. I mean, how can you say that you are aligned with the West? I mean, the Chinese will be wrong if they say that India was aligned, all right? Even today, we're not aligned, all right? Now, so far as you're talking about qualitative, okay, and you're also talking about pragmatist, all right, which is your this thing. Now, a mixture of realism, idealism, and all others, I mean, they come under a different paradigm, all right, which is basically a constructivist approach, all right, is probably what you're thinking about, all right. Look at that rather than say pragmatist, okay, uh, where a lot of things actually come in, all right, and of course critical theory, which is very much there, okay. So
Right.
these are there, but 2+1, you are looking. Why don't you just kind of, you see, when it comes to hard diplomacy, all right, or hard power and all that, I don't think there's any point in having a 2+1 or 2 plus anything, all right, when it comes to China. But when it comes to soft power, so 2+1 diplomacy, and basically it should be, why don't you focus only on soft power? I mean, you're talking about P2P, you know, people to people. You're also talking about uh, cultural diplomacy and all that. Okay,
Right.
collaborative. Okay, so why don't you just focus on uh, 2+1 in soft power? You could talk about what China suggested, and your alternative could be basically that maybe it's not possible so far as hard power is concerned, but well, a soft power or a kind of smart power, all right, approach to a 2+1, this thing can benefit both countries. Okay. Uh,
Okay.
Maybe you can just reshape it a little bit, rethink it. Okay. But the biggest thing is don't use Indo-China. All right.
Uh,
Uh,
it was
that
just
is a specific area. Yeah.
because
Right.
it was an animated dialogue version, and I did not intend to say that India is Western aligned. It was just what China would say about India, of course.
Yeah. That I could make out that, okay, China can say that we are Western aligned, definitely. But as I said, Indo-China is a specific area. So you're talking about India-China. Okay.
Right. Yeah,
Okay, right.
I will
So
correct.
change, yeah, your topic has to be
Safe and
reframed. Okay, great. Right.
thank you so much.
Next, ma'am, I'll be putting up a video presentation by Miss Avantika. She couldn't be here in the session due to some professional commitment, but I'll be putting up her video and we can have your remarks on that. Is that fine, ma'am?
Yeah, that should be okay. Fine.
Okay.
Hi, so my topic for this research would be the never-ending persecution of minorities in Bangladesh. And this topic uh, agenda would be this is basically for this presentation. So first the introduction, then Bangladesh's history, then how is it connected to India and has been connected to India, then also methodology, then research upon minorities and their persecution, then also recent coup and its aftermath. How can social political stability be achieved in such a volatile region? Then India and Bangladesh foreign ministers' stance on the current situation, and then sources and references. So starting from the introduction, so essentially in 1941, when Bangladesh was part of India, they had around 28% Hindu community in Bangladesh, which has now been reduced to only approximately 8%. And there is a huge potential of it being reduced furthermore. Also, this particular stat is about Hindus, but there are other minorities as well, like Buddhist community, Jain community, so on and so forth. So I would be doing some kind of research on that as well, which I would be adding in my research paper. Then coming to the history of Bangladesh, that how it was formed. Basically, first, how West Pakistan and East Pakistan were formed on August 14, 1947. Then, how they fought for almost 2 decades for the Bengali language and other issues also, which both, I mean, essentially, it was one country but different directions. So, what they had between themselves. Then also hurdle in East Pakistan government formation, then battle between West and East Pakistan just before Bangladesh came into being, and then the formation of newly independent state, which is Bangladesh. After that, its connection with India. So, having said that, it was a part of India. Culturally, Bengali is a language which is spoken in West Bengal and Bangladesh. So there is a lot of cultural ties which are present, also business ties and diplomatic relations which are present. And a lot of Indian stalwarts were either born there before independence, before Bangladesh gained its independence, or they had gone there to study. So that kind of connection and so forth. Whatever is there, there's a huge history of India and Bangladesh. And having said that, when Sheikh Hasina was Prime Minister, she had also signed a lot of MOUs with Indian government, which was not long back. It was around June, July 2024 only, just before the happened. So that is there. Then research methodology. So I am currently working on the questionnaire, and I also plan to run it across think tanks and the government officials who are working in this capacity. However, this is one place where I would need some guidance from the faculty experts from IMPRI as to how can I approach them. how can I basically lay foundation to do this kind of primary research? Also, if they can help me with some government officials, details who can probably be interested in commenting on the situation or maybe sharing their insights in person. Then comes data facts based on research. So this is going to be secondary research, something which is already present in forms of articles or papers or white papers. So that I would be basically jotting it down here in the research paper. Also, the main focus would be how since 1947 these minority communities have been targeted and which were the major incidents. So like one of the major incident was execution of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and also a lot of such persecutions have taken place. Then again, the second one would be, it's just an example. There are a lot of persecutions which have happened over a period of so many years. But recent coup and how after that also a lot of persecution took place. Then the conclusion and what I'm trying to drive from such this kind of research is how can social political stability be maintained? So social comes from the point of view that minorities can live in that country securely without being targeted, and political stability is essentially government functioning properly, no coup kind of situation happening, and total freedom of speech, no dictatorship. So these two would be the major, I would try to conclude them in my research paper. And yeah, then sources and references. I would request the faculties, the experts, to share their valuable suggestions. How can I make it more in depth? If I'm missing something, also, how can I go about it if there is a particular, probably, a particular research where which I could follow or something like that. So yeah, that's it about this presentation. Thanks a lot.
Avantika, you're not there, but anyway, my comments will be recorded and sent to you, I guess. First of all, your topic is kind of, you see, it's value loaded. I mean, you start with never-ending, no research paper really starts with that never-ending persecution. That's more like a newspaper article, all right, which uh, well, which can get away with any kind of thing. But a research paper should not really start with never-ending persecution of minorities in Bangladesh. Now, which is actually telling you what you're going to write about, all right? So you can write about minorities in Bangladesh, and your canvas is very broad. You're going back way back historically, all right? And more to the point, half the population of, well, I'm not sure what half, but well, quite a bit of the population of West Bengal hails from that site, all right? Their progeny. There are areas here which basically where they settled, which are still settled by them. And in fact, Jyoti Basu himself was from East Bengal, all right? Uh, uh, Almost every family has connections with East Bengal, and many came away. But when I have done myself a survey of people here in the city of Calcutta, in one small area. Uh, well, and I went around about 50 families already, asking if them, any of the family members, why did they come away? Was anybody killed in a riot or something like that? And well, I didn't come across anybody. I mean, though they did talk about, I mean, so and so was killed in such and such a riot, all that. But it's just the fear, which and also economic. I mean, persecution is not only killing or murder or anything like that. It could be also that you cannot go up the ladder. All right. Well, you come away to a certain extent. Okay, and fear. It's fear of what can happen, which really pushed a large proportion of East Bengali Hindus. But over here, you find that there are pockets, the illegal migrants, all right. We have large number of Bangladeshi Muslims too, okay, uh, in uh, in West Bengal particularly. But so far as yeah, Arunachal has, well, Buddhists, all right, from the CHT region, all right, which has gone into what was then Nepal, okay. Uh, so basically, I mean, if you're going to look at it historically, I mean, you can talk about basically the refugees coming out and why, all right. So that would be there. Now, when you're saying never-ending persecution, not all of them was because of persecution, but because of the fear of persecution that they came away. Okay. Uh, so don't go by what is happening today, all right, even now. A lot of people are afraid about the future. So they come away and they not only come to India, but they leave for, you go to any parts of Italy, to Spain, or you find Bangladeshis all over, all right. So, well, there are both Muslims and Hindus, all right, who are there. Okay, and it's partly economic. So basically, I'd like you to reframe. Now, when you are talking about doing, well, primary interviews or something like that, I mean, primary research in Bangladesh, if you have a topic like never-ending persecution, you will not even get a visa. All right. So there's no question of that. Okay. So primary data, you have to look at basically, maybe go to the Bangladesh High Commission, look at some of their data, but they won't be having the kind of data you want. All right. Uh, so look into other data. All right. Uh, if there are UN data or things like that. So that is something that you can do, because this is something that they will not allow you to work on. In any case, it's very difficult to get a visa now to go to Bangladesh. And a topic, anything to do with minorities, even earlier, say 20 years back also, it was very difficult to get it. I'm not saying it was very difficult, it was not possible. I mean, you can go on a tourist visa and do, kind of research over there, but not giving that you're going to work on this topic and or related with Bangladesh, you will not get a visa. Okay, they're quite particular about that. So uh, that is out. In fact, I'd like you to reshape it, make it more focused. You've taken, as I said, a very wide canvas. I mean, just stick to one listing, minorities uh, in Bangladesh. Uh, 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 Well, basically, take a period, say, if you are going to work on it historically from 1947 to maybe 1964 or something like that, or if you're going to work on the current, all right. Uh, and the other part that I found was that you are not really analyzing, because Bangladesh was very much part of, East Pakistan was very much part of India, all right. And the two Bangladesh in 1905, there was this, well, uh, anti-partition movement, as you know, the Swadeshi movement, all right, which was there. Bengalis on either side did not want their Bengal divided, all right, and it's the same Bengalis who in 1947 ultimately went for a divided Bengal, okay, but in 1905 they talked about unity. They had wanted basically both Hindu, Muslim, and all that Rakhi Bandhan and stuff like that, which happened. So, uh, uh, so basically, it was the Islam that was followed there was kind of syncretic. All right. So you have to analyze what happened in between. All right. Uh, uh, whether it was a land question, whether it was an economic question, whether there was money coming in from the Middle East, or that which brought also a kind of Islam which was very alien to the syncretic Islam that was followed over here. Okay, uh, so it was more like the Saudi Islam, which was being brought along with the money that was coming in to Bangladesh. Okay, so basically an analytical work, all right, which can be done, all right, because when you're talking about Bangladesh, pre 1971, there was no Bangladesh, it was East Pakistan you're talking about. Okay, so take a time period, uh, and maybe, uh, and Mujib, by the way, was not minority. I mean, talking about the execution of Mujib, that was for a political reason. So basically, political, economic, uh, other factors, all right, cultural factors, Islam, all right, among them, okay, uh, the changing nature of Islam, how far that has impacted, all right, as such, the minorities in Bangladesh. So a topic which says never-ending persecution, is not really a research topic. Okay, do you get my point? If this can be conveyed, Priyanka, to her.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, we'll convey this to Avantika ji. And we have another video sent by Ms. Dakshita. She's also not present in the session, but she has shared her presentation. So I'll just put that up.
Myself, Dakshita Sharma, and currently I am in my second year of college pursuing political science honors. So, the topic of my research essay is America's War on Terrorism after 9/11, Human Rights Violation at the Guantanamo Bay. So, I'll be starting with the 9/11 attacks only, and as we all know, how inhumane the attacks were, and how on 11th September 2001 these attacks took place, and the hijacked planes, they struck the World Trade Center towers in New York, and so many innocent lives were shattered and nearly 3,000 people were killed. And these attacks, they marked a turning point in global security, and after these 9/11 attacks only, the US government, they led this war on terrorism, this war on global terrorism, and so many counter-terrorism policies were introduced. And in this research essay, I'm going to delve into how this affected the global terrorism, how it affected the international relations also after the 9/11 attacks, and how it became a major issue, the terrorism. Now I would like to move to the Guantanamo Bay detention camp, and this camp, it was established in January 2002 by the United States only in the wake of 9/11 attacks. So in this camp, so many innocent people, without any trial, they were just detained and they were prisoned until date. They are there, and the atrocities have been happening in this camp, and especially from the Islamic countries, and particularly from Afghanistan, Iraq, and Pakistan. The Bush administration, they designated detainees as unlawful enemy combatants, arguing they were not entitled to the protection of the Geneva Conventions, and this affected their lives, their families. And I read in so many articles and so many research papers that what kind of atrocities have been happening there in this camp, and it's just spine chilling. So the Guantanamo Bay detention camp, it became a symbol of post 9/11 counter-terrorism policy of USA, and it also sparked international criticism because inhumane steps have been taken there, and so many governments of America, they promised that they'll do something about this issue, but till date nothing has been done, and the atrocities, they have still been happening there in the detention camp. Moving on to the case study that I have took, and this case study I'll be focusing, which is Pakistan, and the truth is that 66% of the men in Guantanamo Bay were picked up not on any battlefield but in Pakistan only, and the Pakistani government just turned them over to American government in exchange of millions and millions of dollars. And in the autobiography, In the Line of Fire, by Pervez Musharraf, the former president of Pakistan, he only mentions in his autobiography that how millions of dollars were received as bounties in exchange for human beings. And so we can say the road to Guantanamo Bay, it began in Pakistan only. So in this research essay, I'll be focusing more on this case study of Pakistan, and how the prisoners from Pakistan, their lives were shattered, and the families also, how it affected their families. Talking about the research questions, the research essay will be focusing on these research questions: what legal justifications were used to detain individuals at Guantanamo Bay? Also, how does preventive detention at Guantanamo conflict with international human rights norms? What forms of torture and inhumane treatment have been documented at the facility? And how has Guantanamo affected the US reputation in international law and diplomacy? Lastly, the research question will be: what legal and policy reforms could address human rights concerns? while ensuring national security. So my research paper will include all these research questions. Lastly, I would like to talk about the methodology. I'll be using case studies and doctrinal legal analysis. This study will take a qualitative research approach, and I'll be gathering all my information from international human rights treaties, detainee testimonials, official reports and records, journal articles and reports from human rights groups such as Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International also. So yes, basically, in short, my research essay will be focusing more on how in the Guantanamo Bay detention camp, the human rights of the people there, they have been violated, and how the people there are, they have been exploited from so many years, and if any international organizations or the UN, if they are doing anything on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a doable paper, definitely. But again, over here, I mean, there are, let me just point out, I mean, why don't you focus it a bit more? Say, international conventions and human rights in the United States, a case study of Guantanamo Bay, all right? Rather than, in fact, taking Pakistan as a case study, and basically it seems that your source will be Pervez Musharraf's book, all right, which is not enough, all right? Now, basically, analyze your research questions are fine, and if it that is how I was thinking of the topic, all right? Uh, International conventions and human rights in the United States, and your case study is Guantanamo Bay itself, whether the United States follows, all right, international conventions regarding human rights, okay, and where it violates. So basically, that will make an excellent paper rather than going all over the place, bringing in Pervez Musharraf's book, Pakistan, where they were taken. So basically, why don't you just switch it around a little bit and focus it a bit? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Last call, if anybody else is left to present, please either you can raise your hand or you can unmute and tell us. Okay, ma'am, I think we are at the end of today's session. We are through with all the presentations that we had received or the participants who were willing to present today. With this, ma'am, I invite you for the closing remarks for this program. Over to you.
Thank you, Priyanka. Excellent that we have gone through this, and really we have not really overshot the mark. We are still 2 minutes off 8 o'clock, and maybe I'll take those extra few minutes and say we can take some more and we can finish in a very short while. Now, basically, so far as my concluding remarks are concerned, I mean, thank you very much, all the presenters. You have interesting topics, and I really like the way you have used innovative methods to kind of present. Young people can do that. I mean, fooling around. I mean, we think in very, straight-jacketed lines about presentations, but here, with your poetry and your animation and all that, I mean, that was really very interesting. Okay. Now, in conclusion, what one might say, thanks to everyone, and the last lot and this lot, and I really wish you all the best. Now, what I would like to point out, I mean, keep in mind when you are writing your papers, that basically this is on diplomacy, foreign policy, and geopolitics. Now, these are three different things altogether, all right? And let me focus just on foreign policy and diplomacy. Geopolitics is much larger, and that will, in fact, it has been explained to you again and again. But very, very briefly, all right, about foreign policy and diplomacy. foreign policy, as I've said earlier also, basically it is about national interests. But what I did not say earlier is that you can divide it into three, all right, parts. All right, there are everlasting interests, and there are vital or critical interests, okay, and there are also immediate interests, okay. So far as everlasting interests are concerned, I mean, all countries have those same ones, that is basically guarding its borders, guarding its own national sovereignty. In any foreign policy, this is, of course, a primary interest. Now, vital interest is like for the United States to, it says make America great again now, all right? But what it's talking about, of course, is economic, all right, and also being American, all right, the economic. So economic interests are very important so far as vital and critical interests are concerned. Uh, when you are structuring your foreign policy, you are also thinking of economic policies and how basically your country, the GDP can grow, all right, and basically it can compete uh, in the world market economically also. That is just one of them, but there are other critical vital interests too, okay. For some countries, it might be uh, uh, I know in South Africa, xenophobia is one such thing, all right, okay. Immigration across borders is another, okay, and also in the United States. Now, immediate interest is what basically leads to diplomacy. Immediate interest, I mean, something like what is happening, unfolding now in India, all right. What you see, what happened in Kashmir, uh, it leads to a change, all right, in policies, all right. Uh, Here we talk about neighborhood first, but if the neighbor basically is involved in an attack, all right, it can lead to, all right, difference, okay. So, immediate interest well shapes what the current policy is all about. All right. Okay. Let me give you the example of the United States primarily because it is well, for them, foreign policy is very important, and from there you get all these theories about realism and all that. So when the United States actually, when it was a very new country, it came up with the Monroe Doctrine, all right, and that was immediate interest, all right, to keep the European powers out, well, of its this thing. But as it began to grow, as it began to industrialize, okay, uh, well, towards the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the, okay, you find an expansionist American policy. All right, it began to expand. Okay, not only to its neighbors, Samoa, Guam, all right, which is now part of that. Okay, Hawaii, all right, and as well, Philippines also. Okay, so basically, it began to expand. So it was expansionist. All right, and then comes the First World War and the Second World War. Between the two, all right, again, it basically decides not to, all right, get involved in this thing. So it has an isolationist policy. And this is again, I said, immediate interest. Okay. This is what drives diplomacy. I mean, the kind of theories which come up, or rather basically the kind of uh, policies which come up are immediate policies. Okay. Then you have the Second World War, and then you have what? The rise of the Soviet Union. So a policy of alignment, allies, blocks, and you start with the Truman Doctrine, okay, which completely changes the immediate foreign policy. But the enduring interests are very much there. The vital interests are also there. But so far as immediate is concerned, all right, there is a change, okay, reshaping of policies, all right. Uh, in India, if you kind of come back to that, all right, come to our part of that, the country. Well, we became independent in 1947, so we can think in terms of a policy which was developed, all right, by uh, largely Nehru, or Jawaharlal Nehru, and that was non-alignment. And basically, this was again immediate interest. Okay, immediate interest drove us towards non-alignment because we do not want, after 200 years of well bearing the colonial yoke, we did not want any other country to dominate us at that point of time. And in fact, maybe it was the best thing to do because otherwise it would be something like Pakistan today, or dependent on other countries, our own, and well, the vital interests come in, all right, within this thing, you see, Mrs. Gandhi changed it a little bit, all right, so that we could develop our own industries, all right. So, well, IBM, etc., which were in India, Coca-Cola, all these companies, nationalization of banks so that we could grow, all right. But when it comes, again, immediate interest drives policies. when China attacks us, we take help also from the United States. Okay, we go there, all right? When well, basically Bangladesh, all right, was going to be created. East Pakistan was in turmoil, and of course India was preparing for war the whole year of 1971. Okay, uh, now then basically we are still non-aligned, but we what we sign a treaty of friendship. We call it partnership now. Then it was treaty of friendship with the Soviet Union. All right, so and see what it entails. So it is immediate interests which basically drive uh, the changes in foreign policy. Okay, and that is where diplomacy comes in. All right, so basically immediate interest is something which changes. Now we're talking about good neighbor policy, I mean under the Modi regime. Okay, uh, now good neighbor policy, what it has entailed, well, uh, so far as concrete results are concerned, I'm not sure, but anyway, I mean it's there was also the Gujarat doctrine before that, okay, which is also like a good neighbor policy. I mean neighborhood first policy. Okay, that was more a good neighbor policy than a neighborhood first policy. Now, it was this. Now, how are these basically carried forward? It is carried forward through diplomacy. All right. Now, diplomats are diplomats, okay, because they carry forward your foreign policy. Okay, so there is a difference between, as I said, foreign policy and diplomacy. Okay, diplomacy. Well, here the concepts of hard power, soft power, and smart power also come in. Okay, uh, diplomacy can involve hard power, and we're all wondering what we're going to do. Well, after the terror attack in Pahalgam, all right, use of hard power on negotiation, all right. Already, what has been stated, all right, yesterday, okay, about well, getting out of the Indus River compact, all right, as such fact. Okay, so basically these are manifestations of hard power, all right, to a certain extent. Okay, uh, it's not only the use of the army or the navy or the air force or anything like that, but we can also use hard power, which is economic, all right, economic sanctions, etc., can also be there, all right, stopping trade, uh, which is also very much there. Uh, we have heard so much about soft power, and many of our students here have been talking about gastro diplomacy, etc. Okay, and this is all soft power. All right, a combination of the two. Nye has come up, of course, with Joseph Nye, who came up with soft power, also came up with smart power, which is a combination of the two. Now, so basically, diplomacy is what diplomats do. Okay. Uh, so we don't call them foreign policy personnel. We have the Ministry of External Affairs, which sets the foreign policy, and we have diplomats, all right, in various countries, which do the diplomacy. So basically, don't mix up. I mean, diplomacy and foreign policy are two different things. I'm not going into geopolitics at all because that is going to take up a lot of time, and it has been explained again and again. I'm sure Professor Swaran Singh has done very good listening with geopolitics, all right. So I'm not really going into that. But I just thought this is a kind of summing up, all right, as such, of how you should look at foreign policy and diplomacy when you write your papers or when you think. Also, when you are figuring out what you read in the newspapers or what you hear in the news, or basically even in social media, uh, basically analyze it from the point of view of, well, as I said, eternal interests, vital interests, immediate interests. Okay, the various doctrines which have been there, which of course some of them are relevant today, some were relevant in past times, and diplomacy. And here, when you're talking about diplomacy, hard power, soft power, smart power. Okay, uh, maybe that's all I have to say in conclusion. I wish all of you the very best. Thank you for well, listening to so many of us, all right, for so many days, and for producing such wonderful, well, brief, well, outlines of the people that you're going to write, and wish you the very best. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And with that, we come to the end of ninth day of Diplomacy, Foreign Policy, and Geopolitics Youth Fellowship. And I would like to go ahead with the formal vote of thanks. As we have come to the end of this program, an online international winter and spring school program, a 3-month immersive online introductory leadership certificate training fellowship program. I, Priyanka Negi, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Would like to propose the formal vote of thanks on behalf of IMPRI, Center for International Relations and Strategic Studies, New Delhi. We thank Professor Sanjukta Bhattacharya ji for gracefully convening these sessions. We thank our chair, co-chairs, conveners, and the enthusiastic participants for their active engagement throughout this program. Readings for the sessions have been shared with you all in your email, and the videos of the sessions have also been shared with you for learning. Additionally, a feedback form will be shared with you via email. The certificate of participation will be shared with you after you fill up the feedback form, and the certificate of completion will be shared upon the successful submission of your book chapters. We look forward to your upcoming submission of book chapters, and we are grateful if you are watching us later on YouTube or listening to us on our various podcasts or reading our publications. We hope you continue to join in future to our IMPRI Web Policy Talk and Web Policy Learning. Wishing you a very good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And good night, Priyanka, and all the other participants were still here.